For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome, and you're listening to our latest episode for the week of October 23rd, 2023. My guest today is State Senator Benton Sawrey, and if you're watching the YouTube version of this, we are in his office at the Legislative Building on Thursday afternoon when maybe a redistricting committee is still in or just out. So anyway, Senator Sawrey is a freshman senator representing Johnston County, where he grew up. He went to NC State for undergrad and law school at the University of South Carolina. He lives in Clayton. He's an attorney and started his career in politics as a Republican intern in 2005. So thanks for being on.
Sure, that was great to be on.
So let's talk about how you got involved in politics. You said you were an intern. Were you an intern for a person, for the party? How did that go?
So I started, when I came to NC State looking for something to do, went down to Republican headquarters, which was on Hillsborough Street at the time, and asked for, something, an internship, and started there entering data. It was 2005, and you would take sheets and you enter them to some of the GOP databases. Enjoyed that, got to interact with some people and do some different things, and then applied up here and actually worked for Senator Berger as an intern for a couple of years, and then Senator Apodaca as an intern, and just got involved and stayed involved from there.
So before Berger had a leadership position?
That's right. He was the minority leader at the time.
Okay. He
was the minority leader. I think he was in Senator Robinson's office down on the first floor of the Legislative Building. It was let's see here, Cody Hand was his attorney, and she's Sarah Holland now, who's the clerk. She was his press secretary. Daryl, who's still with him in boards and commissions, was the chief of staff at the time. So it was a really neat experience to work and kind of see how the Senate operated and learn from him at the time and make some great relationships.
So what was not yet Senate Leader Berger like back then?
I would say he's unchanged. He's always been a steady leader. He's very patient. He's very thoughtful. I think I would probably say he's the same guy in 2023 as he was in 2005, at least.
More powerful now, though. Right?
Certainly. Oh, yeah, a lot's changed. Just being on the other side and having those policy choices. Right. Yeah.
So you're a freshman and there's a supermajority. So what is that like? When you came in, there wasn't a total Republican supermajority, but there was in the Senate. So did the dynamic change with, yes, my political party has control, but I'm new here kind of, but you're already familiar because you knew Senator Berger before, you knew others before. So what was that like coming in as a freshman?
It's been, certainly being part of the supermajority with both chambers has been interesting. It's you have a policy idea, it's easier to get it from beginning to end. And I've seen some other freshmen on the other side of the aisle, that they've had some good policy ideas, but it just hasn't been able to move just because of the position where they are, and they haven't been able to build the coalition they probably wanted to. But I've had a chance to pass some bills this session. I've had a chance to be part of some conference committees and even chair some conference committees. In 10 months and 23 days by the time this podcast airs, to be able to look and say that some things I worked on have actually become law in North Carolina is pretty amazing.
So let's talk about two different bills. There's House Bill 125, which is a House bill, but you chaired the conference committee report on it. That went through, became law. Cooper signed it. And then another one, or maybe more than one, but we'll talk about Senate Bill 671, which was referred to rules, which is great if it means the next stop is the floor. Not so great if rules is its final stop, right? So what was the conference committee report? I was reading it. It's a variety of like healthcare job stuff, from having law enforcement and emergency departments to military licenses to hearing aids. So was that different pieces of a bill that ended up in conference report and they just said, okay, you usher all this through, but it's such a variety pack of things. How do you get consensus on it?
Yeah, so 125 started out as, I believe, the Safe Surrender Act, which got lumped into Senate Bill 20. So it was a vehicle to be used for something else. So at the time, we were looking for some places to put some Senate priorities from healthcare on it. And folks knew that I was passionate about hospital violence and hospital safety. My wife works at a hospital. I've heard stories. I've seen what her colleagues go through. I've seen what she goes through and just how difficult that is. We have a healthcare shortage today. And certainly getting more talent in the pipeline is a part of it, and expanding Medicaid's a part of it. But you also have to create an environment where they're safe. Our local hospital in Johnston County sees thousands of incidents every year. And Representative Dr. Reeder was passionate about this as well and worked on the topic and done some great work getting it across the finish line on the House side. So I took part of that, put it in 125, modified some provisions in it. We found some other Senate priorities that we thought were very, very important, and we packaged them together and thought we put together a pretty good bill that passed the Senate eventually. The next step of that was really fascinating because obviously the House didn't concur. So I got to be part of a negotiation on a conference committee and actually chaired the conference committee on it. Midnight on the last day of session before we recently adjourned and came back. We're getting a conference report signed, getting it voted on, and horse trading to see what provisions we get in place. It was a learning experience. I'm thankful that Senator Raven and Senator Berger let me have that opportunity.
How did you pitch it to them? Did they but how does that work where you end up getting to be a conference chair?
I think it was, they saw the work that I did taking 125 through the Senate side and kind of building lots of different provisions and priorities. So when I did ask Senator Raven if I could be part of this, I think he was more inclined to do so just based on the work that I had done. And probably as much as anything, just to try to see if, I'm worth my salt as a freshman.
So sometimes Senator Raven, I think most people who listen to the podcast know who Senator Bill Raven is, but Rules Chair is the one that controls the flow of bills. So sometimes it just goes to rules and doesn't leave. So are you at the point now far enough into your freshman term that you know when things are going to go, or that, you like something maybe your constituents want you to file, and if it doesn't happen this session, maybe it'll happen one day, as far as, trying to move something, even though you don't know where it's going to end up?
I think so. If he's listening, Senator Raven's great. And I really appreciate. He's been a great mentor and a great friend, and I've really enjoyed working with him this session. He's given me some opportunities I don't think I would have expected to have had otherwise. But I think from day one to month 10, I understand the process and kind of the feel and what they're looking for in legislation. What's the legislation that's going to move? What's the legislation that's not? Some things that I think are just really, really great pieces of policy. I've got to understand there are 30 members in our caucus. There are 50 members in the Senate. Something that's really, really good for Johnston County might not be great for Craven County. And you have to keep those dynamics in mind and kind of work through that. And part of it is advocating within the caucus and advocating within different committees to see if you can actually get something dislodged. I think I've gotten a much better grasp of the process at this point.
So with redistricting, you represented Johnston County before. Yeah. It looks like the map you are. Explain to people listening why that is. Yeah,
so Johnston County isn't going to change in the Senate map. I knew that at the beginning of the year. I know that today. I knew that last week. We are a whole county district. Part of the grouping based on the Stevenson case, which actually came from Johnston County, requires these county groupings using this formula. And Johnston County this time for first time ever, we hit the population number right on the head. So we have to be a whole county district, just like Onslow County has to be a whole county district. So it's been very relaxing for me to watch this process as it unfolds.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about Johnston County, which some people call JOCO now. So I'm going to ask what you think about that. And I'm sure people that live in Johnston County have thoughts too. I'm also going to ask Senator Sawrey what he likes from the legislative cafeteria or snack bar, and then our picks for headliner of the week. We'll be right back. You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan, here with Republican State Senator Benton Sawrey of Johnston County. Before the break, we were talking about some of the legislation he's been pushing and a little bit about Johnston County. So you're from there. You grew up, or you live in Clayton now? Did you grow up in Clayton?
Live in Clayton now. Grew up in Smithfield. Long time, or my family's been there a long time. At least grandmother still lives there. Mom and dad are there. I like to see on the campaign trail that 4 generations of my family currently live in Johnston County. So we're pretty committed to the community.
So I've lived in your neighbor Wake County for, at least 15, more than 15 years. And I thought, Johnston County is the county next to Wake County. And in the past few years, it's been called JOCO. So tell me what you think as a as a Johnstonian county? It's like however you describe that. What about Joe County?
My preference is that it remains Johnston County. I mean, I get it. It's an easy name. It's catchy. It's got a jingle and probably looks good on car bumper stickers. But
so you don't say Joco?
I try not to. I prefer Johnston County.
What's your does your family have a vote? Like, what does everybody else think?
I don't know. I would assume that they probably prefer Johnston too. Yeah. I don't know. As the kids get older, they might change their minds.
It's not a campaign sign, I guess. If you're,
Oh yeah, no, it's really easy to put on stickers and T-shirts. In fact, I think our local Republican Party is Joco GOP or something like that. Yeah.
Well, since you mentioned that, you were their general counsel for a time. And then you also ran for your seat before. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So in 2016, when my current colleague, Senator Newton, ran for Attorney General.
Not Paul Newton.
Bug Newton. Yep.
Right.
Senator Bug Newton. He ran for Attorney General. He opened up the seat that was Northern Johnston, part of Wilson, part of Nash. And it was an open seat. Nobody from Johnston County was running for it. So I gave it a shot. Lost barely. I think just over 600 votes in the primary election. But it was a good experience. Learned a lot. Came back and tried it again, and here we are.
Did you think after that loss, did you think, well, I want to, try again, depending on if I think I can win? Did you think about local government, different things? What were you doing in those few years in between, I guess?
It's all about the right opportunity and timing. It was, at the time it was an open seat. Yeah, I was not going to run against an incumbent. I was not going to run against somebody that I had respect for in a county commission seat or a house seat or something of that nature. This came up. It was open. Had some encouragement to try it again, and family was in a good place. So yeah, it was a. Plus, I had experience in the Senate, had experience working with some of the people that were still here, and a lot of respect for the leadership, and glad to be back here and do what I can for the county.
What other candidates have you worked with over the years or helped support?
Well, the first statewide candidate I worked with was Les Merritt in his 2008 campaign for state auditor. He lost that year to our current auditor, Beth Wood. I remember, I think one of the first General Assembly candidates I worked for was Neil Hunt, who represented part of Wake County at the time. Been involved in a lot of local races, a lot of county commission races, a lot of state house races. Just try to stay involved. There are lots of different ways you can do so.
Do you want to say, I'm trying to remember if any other senators, I know on the House side, they've talked about, when I had House Majority Leader Bell on, he talked about how he liked DeSantis in the Republican presidential primary. And some other people have signed on to that. Not everybody wants to talk about primaries at any level. Is there anyone that you support at, any particular race, the gubernatorial primary yet, or presidential, anything else?
Well, so, there are a lot of good candidates out there. I think President Trump is probably the front runner in that field. And, the Republican base, certainly in Johnston County, supports him. Mark Robinson, I've had a relationship with Lieutenant Governor Robinson for a couple years now at this point. He is a unique and charismatic candidate, and I think he's definitely got the Republican nomination for governor locked up at this point.
What do you think about the latest one that just entered yesterday as we're talking on Thursday, Bill Green?
It was funny. I saw that headline when it came out, and I recall he ran in 2008. The data that I've seen has shown that Lieutenant Governor Robinson is almost more popular with Republican primary voters than Donald Trump is with Republican primary voters in North Carolina, at least in Johnston County. He is, I have a lot of respect for what Bill Graham has done. He's been very active politically. I just don't know if I can see anybody right now that could beat Lieutenant Governor Robinson.
And just thinking at the primary, is it pretty much all about the primary within the party, then looking toward the general as far as when you think about who you support, or I guess more like what you think voters, base voters will go for?
Well, I think you have a historic candidate with Lieutenant Governor Robinson. The first African American Republican candidate who's bringing out new voters to the polling place. So So, I mean, I don't think I've heard a lot of talk about people said, oh, yeah, he's a great primary candidate, but not necessarily in the general election. Well, I mean, I don't think that's the case at all. I think he's going to bring new people over to the Republican Party that have never voted Republican before. We try and build a base, especially going to the next election cycle. I think people are going to be very surprised about how he performs.
Any other thoughts on 2024? Any other races at any level of government?
We'll have to see.
Yeah. Well, all 170 people in this building are going to be on various ballots in their jurisdiction. So I'll move on to something a little bit lighter about this building and the food here. The first time I ever have a lawmaker or staff on, and I ask what their go-to item is or favorite item in the legislative building or the cafeteria or the snack bar, or if you eat the LOB.
Ooh. All right, so the snack bar is included in that?
Yeah,
okay,
that's
right.
It crosses.
So in the morning, I like to get a breakfast sandwich from the snack bar. I get a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich, 1 egg fried on white toast, and a Coke from the fountain machine. And I'll sit down there and have it. At lunchtime, I mean, this is probably something a 12-year-old eats, but I really like grilled cheese and French fries, and they make pretty good grilled cheese down there.
The snack bar does grilled cheese?
The cafeteria.
Oh, the cafeteria does.
Yeah.
Okay. I get the grilled cheese from Carol's Kitchen a few blocks further downtown. That's pretty good. So when Senator Johnston was on, his favorite item is the mixed fruit jelly. So not even something you make, just the So I think you're covered with grilled cheese.
When I heard him say that, I was a little disappointed he didn't talk about his the ketchup preference he has down there.
What do you mean?
Well, he has a very strong opinion on Heinz ketchup versus Hunt's ketchup.
Oh, okay.
And he actually so they have Heinz mustard in the cafeteria, but only Hunt's ketchup. So he prefers his Heinz ketchup instead.
That is interesting. Well, I've noticed like the drink machines, it's got Coke on one side and Pepsi on the other. Almost like they wanted Coke products, but then they're like, well, Pepsi, New Bern.
Right. Yeah, let's go North Carolina.
Figure out something here. Okay. All right. Before we wrap up, let's get to our picks for headliner of the week. We have similar headliners at a different capital area. Mine are all of the memes of that Patrick McHenry, photos of Patrick McHenry as he, I don't know, as by the time people listen to this on Monday, speaker, temporary speaker, maybe never again speaker, maybe permanent speaker, who knows, Patrick McHenry, who is of course from North Carolina, because all roads lead to and from North Carolina. But the memes of McHenry, who has a very specific aesthetic, I guess. Sure, yeah. So that's my headliner. Senator Sawrey, who or what is your headliner?
So similar theme, but the Representative Mike Collins Twitter account, just giving the satirical play-by-play, because at some point, I guess, the reality is so exhausting, you might as well laugh about it. I appreciate that levity to the situation. He's been really good about it.
I imagine that even when caucus can get, maybe not on the Senate side, but in the House side anyway, here it really doesn't compare to McCarthy and Gates.
No, I don't know if we've had anybody yell at each other, tell somebody to sit down, and that type of dramatic flair they're having up there. That's been interesting to follow. Yeah,
different vibe in our state senate here. All right, well, we are out of time. Senator Sawrey, thank you for being on.
Thanks for having me.
Time. Dawn Vaughan for the News and Observer. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.